Here we have some of the marshmallows farmed in this area. These will soon be taken off to the marshmallow factory where they chop them up into smaller marshmallows and eventually into mini marshmallows. These large marshmallows just create a craving for a very large cup of hot chocolate. Hello, welcome to Birdwise for November 2007. In addition to our regular features, the news, calendar, and feather report, we'll hear about brood parasites, we'll visit the Chehalis River Discovery Trail, but first, a word from our sponsor. Our bird of the month is a whole family of birds, the gull family. Gulls are known to most people, and they are common in Thurston County. But there are many species in this broad category, and none of them are seagulls. The most numerous year-round gull is the glaucous-winged gull. This species is the one nesting on the buildings in the port area. Most of the 12 or so other species only spend the winters around here. You may notice some gulls are brown and others are gray-backed and white bodies. The all-brown birds are young gulls less than a year old. The all-white and gray birds are the adults. Larger species like our glaucous-winged take 4 years to mature. Smaller species such as the Bonaparte's gull take only 2 years. Gulls go through a succession of mixed brown and gray plumages between the first year and maturity. Terns are related to gulls, but have more slender pointed wings and a black cap. Caspian terns are found around Olympia in the summer. Watching a tern plunge into the water to catch fish is always an exciting experience. Let's go to Bert Gutman and hear about this interesting phenomena of brood parasitism.
Hi. Well, I hope that from previous programs I've convinced you that my Aunt Molly, even though she never married and had children, was perpetuating some of her own genes by becoming a helper, helping to raise my brothers and me, so that in that way she helped to perpetuate some of her sister's genes, and of course her parents' genes. So cooperative breeding is an excellent way of reproduction, and one of the main advantages is that it gets other individuals involved in the labor of raising young. So another excellent kind of a reproductive strategy is to let other individuals do all of the labor for you. In other words, to become a brood parasite. And there are a number of species of birds that are brood parasites. The classic example is the Eurasian or European cuckoo. It's from this bird that we get our word cuckold. A cuckold being a man whose wife may be off getting her eggs fertilized by some other man. That's not exactly what happens in brood parasitism. The cuckoos are male and female, and they mate and they breed normally, but then the female doesn't bother to make a nest. She goes off and she finds the nests of other birds, and she lays her eggs in those nests, and then when the little cuckoos hatch, they have to be raised by the host species. This is a kind of a sneaky way of reproduction. It's interesting, incidentally, that the Eurasian cuckoo has become specialized into different lines of reproduction, different genetic lines that are called genties. And you can see from the picture here that different genties are specialized for laying eggs in the nests of other species. And each gen lays eggs that are very similar to the eggs of its host species, so that the host has a very difficult time distinguishing the cuckoo eggs from its own eggs. Well, there are a number of other species of birds that are brood parasites. Down in Africa, there are a number of species of birds called honey guides. These are very nondescript little birds. They get their name because they guide humans and some other mammals to places where bees have made nests and are making honey. And then when the human or the other mammal goes there and destroys the nest to get the honey guides move in and they feed off the dead bees or off pieces of wax. So the honey guides commonly lay their eggs in the nests of other birds. Here's a picture of a honey guide that was attempting to get into the nest of black-collared barbets, and the black-collared barbets are chasing it off. The nestlings of honey guides are often very nasty kinds of brood parasites. The honey guide nestlings have a big egg tooth, and they use that egg tooth to kill the other nestlings. Other brood parasites don't do that. The cuckoo nestling, it's specialized for getting one of the eggs of its host up on its back, and then it raises itself up in the nest and gradually pushes the host egg out of the nest. Well, in North America, we don't have these birds. All of the cuckoos in North America are not brood parasites. The principal brood parasites we have here in the Americas are cowbirds. Now, the cowbirds get their name because they follow along with cows and other kinds of domestic animals out in the field, and they feed on the insects that are chased up by those cows as they move along. So they're now found all over North America because there are cows all over North America. But in primitive America, before the European settlement, the cowbirds were probably confined to the Great Plains where they lived among the bison. And the bison are migratory, and so the cowbirds would move along from one place to another with the bison. And they really did relatively little damage to other birds that they parasitized. That is, they would probably parasitize the birds in one region for a short time, and then the bison would move off away from that region. They're letting the grass regrow in that area. And so the cowbirds would move off to some other region and parasitize the birds in that region. And that gave the birds in the first place an opportunity to recover. But now that we have cowbirds all over North America, this is becoming a very interesting kind of a problem. The cowbirds are known to parasitize the nests of over 220 species of North American birds. They tend to concentrate on a few species more than others. They very commonly parasitize the nests of yellow warblers and red-winged blackbirds and song sparrows and a few other species. But now, as I said, they're spreading out to parasitize birds all over North America. And one of the places where this has become a very serious problem was with the Kirtland's warbler. Now, the Kirtland's warbler is a very rare bird, and it's confined only to a very small area of northern Michigan, where it lives in the jack pine forests. And because it's such a rare bird, because it's so confined, it's really very much in danger of becoming extinct. And brown-headed cowbirds were becoming a very important factor in inhibiting the reproduction of the Kirtland's warbler. And so there's now been a program of removing cowbird eggs from Kirtland's warblers' nests, wherever they happen to be found, and also of trapping and killing the cowbirds in that region. And quite a number of cowbirds have been killed there. And I think most people would say that this is a program that is completely justified. It's certainly justified in this case. It's a question as to whether it's justified to do this sort of thing with other birds. People are becoming concerned that with the brown-headed cowbirds being spread throughout North America, that they're really endangering a lot of other birds. I must say I've seen this happening. I once encountered a couple of little juncos that were running around frantically chasing around under a bush, trying to find every bit of food that they could stuff into the face of a young brown-headed cowbird that they'd been tricked into raising. And they were really having to expend all of their energy just to feed this one bird. And they had no energy, they had no time left to feed any of their own nestlings, which were probably dead by that time. Well, anyway, as I always say, pick up your binoculars and go on out and do some birding, and you'll probably look at cowbirds with a different eye now that you know something about their habits.
Tim and I recently went to the Chehalis River Discovery Trail just north of Centralia. Here's our report. This is a very birdy spot with trails along the flood zone of the river. We first found an American kestrel and northern harrier coursing over the fields. American pipits and American goldfinches flew overhead. This is Lewis County, remember. Along the river trail there is a stand of willows which was loaded with yellow-rumped warblers flitting about. Song and fox sparrows popped up in the blackberries, and we came across a nice flock of mixed species in the woods, including Hutton's vireos, Townsend's warblers, chestnut-backed and black-capped chickadees, and a downy woodpecker. We also encountered Janet Strong of the Chehalis River Basin Land Trust. I'll have her explain this project.
Hi, I'm Janet Strong, and I'm the president of the Chehalis River Basin Land Trust. And our land trust has worked over the past 4 years or so with the city of Centralia to build the trail, the nature trail or the interpretive trail along the Chehalis River, and also, more importantly, to restore the riparian forest along here. It had been removed to create the farm and practice agriculture, and now we have about a 200-foot buffer at least on the portions of the farm that had been farmed right up to the edge of the river. It's going to provide a lot of wildlife habitat, a lot of protection for the river, shade, temperature control, and food source for the river also. We've been really happy to have this partnership with the city of Centralia. They bought the farm about, I think, 7 or 8 years ago to site their wastewater treatment plant on. And they're keeping it a working farm, and they immediately, when we approached them, the director of the utilities department was very happy with the idea of restoring the riparian forest. And so we worked together. We got a grant from the Surf Board, the Salmon Recovery Funding Board in Washington, and we also got a grant from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And the Surf Board grant was for the restoration, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service grant was for the trail. And the most important thing, too, is that we've used this as a great educational tool. We had over 600 students from the basin, schools in the basin, come out and actually plant the trees and take interpretive walks. We've led hundreds of students out here on this trail. This forest that you see across, from as far as you can see all the way down here, is all protected under a conservation easement. It's in private ownership, and the land trust, the Chehalis Land Trust, holds a conservation easement.
If you wish to visit the Chehalis River Discovery Trail, take I-5 south to the Grand Mound exit and turn on US 12 towards Rochester. Turn south onto Old Highway 99 at the first stoplight. After a few miles, turn right west on Goodrich Road and follow this to the end. There is a parking lot, and the trail is well marked from here. If you have entered Centralia, you've gone too far. Let's go to Sheila McCartan for the news and calendar, and then to Phil Kelly for the Feather Report.
Thanks, Tom. Our news this month is a follow-up to a feature we aired earlier on bluebirds. This story was reported in Bird Conservation, the magazine of the American Bird Conservancy. On June 17, 2007, a pair of western bluebirds was seen foraging with 3 young in a field on San Juan Island. Thanks to local media coverage and outreach efforts, the landowners who saw the birds were already aware of the Western Bluebird Reintroduction Project initiated by ABC and the Eco Studies Institute. They immediately contacted the San Juan Islands Audubon Society and San Juan Preservation Trust, local partners in the project, who confirmed the sighting. This discovery represents the first successful nesting of a species on San Juan Island since the mid-1960s and confirms the potential for success of ABC's 5-year reintroduction project. The breeding pair was found 2 miles away from where the birds had been released in March of 2007. They were first discovered in early April, 2 weeks after their release, investigating nest boxes on the southeastern part of the island, but disappeared until the June sighting. The successful breeding of a pair of reintroduced bluebirds exceeds project expectations for the first year and provides encouragement for the goal of establishing a viable breeding population of western bluebirds in their historic range. And now for the calendar. On Saturday, December 1st, from 9 a.m. to noon, join field trip leader Bert Gutman for Downtown Ducks Part 1. Large numbers and many species of waterfowl winter in the downtown Olympia area. It is an excellent place to see ducks and to learn about them, and Bert is just the person to help you sort them out. This is primarily a trip for beginners, but anyone is welcome to join in. Meet Bert at the Tumwater Historical Park and bring a spotting scope if you have one. Call the Black Hills Audubon Society office at 352-7299 to register. On Saturday, December 8th, join field trip leader Dave Hayden for an all-day trip to the Goodrich Pond and Chehalis River Discovery Trail, as we've talked about on this show. The Goodrich Pond, along with the newly opened river trail, has made this area the best hot spot for birding in Lewis County. Dave hopes to find a variety of waterfowl, possibly some swans, raptors, shorebirds, and any other wintering surprises. The trail is approximately 2 miles round trip. Call the Black Hills Audubon Society office, 352-7299, to reserve your spot. Here's an early heads up for our local Christmas bird counts. We'll have more complete information on Christmas bird counts on the December show. The Olympia CBC will be held on December 16th. Contact Susan Markey at 438-9048 for more information. The Satsep Christmas bird count will be held on Wednesday, December 26th. This count covers the area between Elma and Montesano, north and south of the highway. It regularly tallies over 100 species, and counters have found such rarities as black phoebe, ruff, and cinnamon teal. Please contact Tom Schooley at schooleymccarton@comcast.net or 357-9170 for more information or to sign up. We'll end our report today with our feather report for December. Here's Birdwise featherman Phil Kelly.
Well, thanks, Sheila. Hi, folks. The feather forecast for November is going to predominantly focus on water birds, with one exception. Most of our passerines, the warblers, the thrushes that we had here during the spring and the summer and the early fall are gone now. So now we're focusing on water birds, ducks, grebes. Common loons should be around in the sound. We should have western grebes out in the salt water, possibly common murres, pigeon guillemots, and a lot of waterfowl are coming in. We have mallards, and the green-winged teal, and the widgeon. Any place where there's water, there should be a lot of these birds. We have a lot of raptors in the area now, and as you drive the freeways, you'll notice a lot of red-tailed hawks sitting on light fixtures and looking over the freeway. But the one great exception in the month of November to the water birds is that great American icon that we all feast on at the end of November, the turkey. So early in the month, grab your binoculars, get down to Capitol Lake or the Olympia waterfront, Mud Bay, Woodard Bay, Nisqually Wildlife Refuge. Go out and find some of these ducks and some of these water birds and go enjoy them. After Thanksgiving meal, when you've sat there and you've eaten way too much like I probably will, wouldn't be a bad idea to grab your binoculars, dress for weather if you need to, go out and take a walk around these areas, get some exercise, and look for these birds. It'll really brighten up some of the dull, dark, damp, cloudy days that we're going to have. So go look for some of these birds and have a great month of November.
Let's visit the Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge Visitor Center and see what books are available this year for your holiday gifts.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dennis Weeks, Nisqually Nature Shop, the Nisqually National Wildlife Reserve. I'd like to talk about some bird guides. The first book I'd like to talk about is the Kaufman Field Guide to Birds in North America. It is a great beginner's book that has been divided out so it is easier for a beginner to pick out a bird that he doesn't recognize and find out what the bird is. It's got a real quick index in front where the birds are divided by size and color. You can just get a quick glimpse. It's really an excellent beginner's book. The second book I would really recommend, and probably the most popular book overall, is the National Geographic Birds of North America. It's the 5th edition. It came out just about a year ago, and it's been broken down into different birds by tabs. This particular tab is the gulls, which is a particularly difficult subject. It's an excellent book, one of the better books on the market. Third book, another popular book in today's market, is by David Allen Sibley. Excellent field guide, one of the smaller books, rated right up there with the other two, the Kaufman book and the National Geographic, a little bit smaller. All of his illustrations are hand painted. He spent about 5 years doing this book, but an excellent book. Fourth book that I really like is The Birds of Washington State by Brian Bell, a Seattle author. A little more regional. It doesn't show all the birds of the U.S., but it cuts down on the birds that you would look for if you just see a bird here in the state of Washington. So it makes it a little bit easier if you're just going to be around the state. The Nisqually Nature Shop is open Wednesday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
We had a question about whether or not gulls interbreed in this area, and the answer is yes, they do. There are many hybrids between glaucous winged gulls and western gulls, which makes it very difficult to identify these two exact species. There are also other species of gulls around here which show some of the same characteristics as the hybrids. So gull identification is one of the areas which requires a fair amount of study, and it's certainly one that I haven't mastered. Thank you for watching Birdwise for November 2007. We're happy you could be here. Let's close again with a passage from William Leon Dawson. Picture yourself in Seattle at the turn of the 20th century. To the city man especially, the gull is the one visible point of contact with the great beyond of nature. Pray, consider what a benevolent miracle it is that these most improvident of God's creatures, the birds, are impelled to loiter for a season about the doorstep of a great city. These thronging docks, upborne by close-set piles, and housing the wares of Occident and Ind, what are they but the very ramparts of order, the symbolic breastworks of organized human industry now millenniums old? And yet, upon a wooden pedestal hard by sits a gull, serene, sedate, unhurried, a son of the wilderness, gazing upon you with level eye, and rebuking by his very blue-gray calm the pomp and madness of men.